Welcome everyone to the stream. Uh, it is a beautiful Tuesday night here. So this is it. This is either the start of a brand new time here, or it is the end of democracy. And I wanted to be here with you guys. So tonight, if you're not from America, I want to quickly explain what's going on. America just went through its it's election night. It's November 3rd. This is our general election when we pick president, vice president, up and down the ballot. There's things, representatives, senators that represent us in Washington, in our state capitals, in our municipalities, in our towns and cities, our mayors, our school boards, a lot of different stuff. So all of that is on the line today, and there were a lot of cities that had LGBTQ protection discrimination orders on their ballot. So in America, we go by ordinances of basically rules that say, well, only people in certain in this area, people in this area will they. There's a lot of you joining us. They can't discriminate against LGBTQ in this municipality if there's an ordinance in that town that says they can't. That's how we go by until we get the Equality Act nationwide, or a state ordinance or a state law passed through the state government. So a lot of municipalities and towns and cities have these ordinances across the country. A majority of America has these things now, and yet, somehow the country doesn't want to adhere to that. So anyway, as we get started here tonight, I want to quickly mention that through all of this, Powered by Rainbows and our entire team have been working tirelessly for the past couple weeks leading up to tonight, and they've been working incredibly hard today. I know I woke up at 5 o'clock this morning, and I've been going ever since, working my butt off, trying to remind people to get out there and vote. At 7 a.m., as soon as polls opened in my area, I went and I voted. We're making video content and post all day, and we're just trying our best to get people out to vote. Make sure that they know that if they're in line in time, they can vote no matter what, even if the polls close. Making sure people know what's at stake this election. We've been working incredibly hard. So I want to quickly mention, if you believe in what we do and LGBTQ equality and education, please help support our show, help support the people that make this show possible. We have an incredible team of 12 people behind us that research the hell out of everything to make sure that it's all 100% accurate before I start talking, or before any of our hosts start talking. So if you support what we do, please do consider making a super chat donation of any amount you can. Super chats are available tonight during the stream as we go through. So just a quick reminder, it's there if you have the financial means to do that. So I want to quickly say that I agree with a lot of you. Throughout the entire day, I've been absolutely terrified. And it's been a day from hell, honestly. From making sure that voters know what's at stake for LGBTQ rights, to just dealing with people that laugh in your face when you tell them, all these kids out there, they see what's going on, they hear about it all, and telling people that Trump is a man that awarded James Dobson, a man who makes his living pushing kids to suicide and showing them how exactly to do it, you know, and Trump awarded him for doing it. You know, Trump's a man who believes in conversion therapy and has passed 135 anti-LGBTQ policies and executive orders since taking office in just 4 years, which is 130 sometimes more than any other president has ever done against our community. And yet there's still people who say that he supports us. He's packed the court with 280 some anti-LGBTQ judges that want to take away our rights to marry. And this week there's a vote in the Supreme Court of the United States and that basically would strip us of our rights to a legal adoption, to adopt a child and save a kid's life. That's up for election this time, you know, and that vote's happening this week, you know, and there are so many things like within the coming weeks, marriage equality is going to be up for Supreme Court decision again, because so many of the Supreme Court justices want it on the ballot now because of Amy Coney Barrett now in office. So fuck her. Like, there are so many things like this that are up for election today, and there was a huge amount at stake today. And that's why I've been stressing to no end about it. I didn't do any of my normal work today. This is it. This is it for me. This is what we've been waiting for 4 years now. The Senate refused to impeach Trump. Today was the day that we can finally show the world that we're smarter than this. Now, there was hope today. Out of all the races that happened, I want to quickly point out 2 key races that we've been keeping an eye on behind the scenes, and you guys might not actually know about them, because everyone's been looking at this Donald Trump versus Joe Biden race, right? Everyone's been looking at that, right? But what about the down ballot stuff? Like, we know everyone's been focused on that because that's what we should focus on. The president is the president, and we should be definitely concerned about having a president that's LGBTQ friendly. And right now we don't have that. But I will say that 2 amazing things came out of today, and I am actually super excited to tell you about them, because so many people don't know that this happened today, and it's so cool. So I'm gonna just quickly put our chat room over here so I can still see. You're saying your mother is transphobic and racist and she becomes a Trump supporter. That doesn't surprise me at all. Most Trump supporters are homophobic and transphobic, so that doesn't really surprise me. Now, what did surprise me today was these 2 stories. I'll quickly jump over here so we can see my screen. While all of us have been looking at the presidential race, right? Our team and a lot of other teams around the world have been looking at the smaller stuff. This is Taylor Small, who will be Vermont's first openly transgender legislator. Small, I'm trying to see here. She's the 5th trans legislator in the nation. With 41% of the vote, Taylor Small has officially made history as the first out trans person elected to the Vermont state legislature. So this is at the state legislator level. Wait, hold on. So, yeah, this is state legislator in Vermont. Just a few weeks ago, Small told LGBTQ Nation what breaking this barrier means to her. She says, quote, being the first means being that representation, she says, and being that guiding light. In a lot of ways, I don't see it as a historical moment for myself, but more of a historical moment for the community. So she officially won. She won. And that's what's so amazing about this entire process is, and why we fight so hard to have LGBTQ people represented in our offices, is because once they're in those offices, we can look up and see, like, wow, like, if they're representing me, it's not about, and believe me, like, once a LGBTQ candidate becomes elected, they're not solely working on LGBTQ legislation. That's not, a lot of, like, homophobes and transphobes will accuse them of that, but they're not doing that, right? So, yeah, we're banning the trumpets, by the way. I don't know why people oppose asexual. That is stupid to me. I don't get that. But so they're not solely working on LGBTQ legislation. That's not the purpose they run in the first place. It's that basically, having someone there to show us, hey, this is someone we can look up to now. This is possible, It's like when Barack Obama won the presidency years and years ago, I think in 2012 he won it. When he won that, we had African American community. Trump didn't win. Okay, so by the way, if you're in the chat room right now, Trump did not win the election. That's not a thing yet. No one knows the outcome of the election yet. That's not a thing. All the polls didn't close yet, so no one knows if he truly won or not yet. We're still in limbo right now of whether or not we still have a country. So that's fun. We're going to get to who's winning so far in just a second. But seeing these representatives at our high offices allows us to see that it's possible. So African Americans saw Barack Obama, and they finally got to see themselves represented and go, wow, even I can be president. Wow, like, before it was all just rich white men, and now it's like, wow, I can be president too, even though I'm African American. And that's sort of what we see on these ballots right now. That's what a lot of us saw in Pete Buttigieg when he was running as he was the first primary candidate that was a serious primary candidate for president that was openly gay, and his husband was there right by his side. They would have been the first openly gay couple as president in the United States history, and that would have been amazing. And there's a reason why I voted for him, because he was such an inspiration to our community, but seeing Taylor Small now win in the Vermont state legislature is a huge victory for our community. To see that representation, and to know that, hey, we can be represented too. Now, and we'll get to the other thing in just a second. This is the second big thing that happened today. LGBTQ rights champion Sarah McBride just became the first transgender state senator in the U.S. history. Sarah is a human rights campaign activist and transgender rights champion, and she became the first trans woman ever elected to a state senator position, and she's now McBride claimed a swift victory in her race for the Delaware Senate on Tuesday, November 3rd. That was today, becoming the first trans person to ever hold an office in a state's upper chamber. So she's the first person across the entire country to. So that's the thing. Trans people have two major representatives now. This is a huge day for the trans community. Like, I'm not trans, but holy crap, like, congratulations, every single trans person. Congratulations to no end. You all have just made such progress today, and that is insane. No matter what happens at the presidential race tonight, no matter what happens in the coming days, because what you have to know here is that in the presidential race, it's not going to be called tonight. No one can call the race tonight. But what we can do is predict what's going to happen, and that's what we're going to do tonight. But the votes in many key places are going to be called over the next coming days. In Pennsylvania, the most crucial state for both candidates, and I'll show you why in just a moment. The most crucial state in America right now is Pennsylvania, and the votes for Pennsylvania aren't even able to be fully counted until Friday. That's this Friday, November 5th or whatever it is. No, 6th, is it? No. What's today? Okay. Yeah, we're not going to let you. Yeah, if you're spewing hate towards transgender people, you're not going to be allowed in the chat. Goodbye. But anyway, yeah, let's not spam the chat with things, but, yes, fuck the orange Trump. But that's the thing. No matter what happens on the national level here tonight or in the coming days, it was such a massive win today for the trans community, and we cannot forget that. No matter what happens, we cannot forget how big of a day this is for the trans community. I am thoroughly, just absolutely thrilled for the trans community today. There were so many great wins for the trans community that, you know, it's just gonna be fantastic for the trans community going forward here. So what's up, guys? So yeah, basically in Pennsylvania, which is the most crucial state for both candidates, it's not going to even be called until Friday at minimum, because that's when the votes are actually due. And even after that point, Trump has already promised, and he's already everyone was like, okay, well, Trump might do a lawsuit against Pennsylvania state legislator because they allowed state mail-in ballots to arrive up to Friday. You had to already send them in. They had to be postmarked by today, but mail-in ballots are actually due because the United States Postal Service is so far behind that it's actually not. What? Okay. It's actually running so far behind that they gave them a couple extra days to actually get the ballots in. So that's really crucial to know, because not all the votes are going to be even in until Friday, and Trump says, well, we cannot count those votes. We cannot count the mail-in votes because that's all fraud. Well, it turns out a majority of mail-in ballots are by Democrats, and that's why he doesn't want them to be counted. It's voter suppression. It's voter intimidation at its worst. Today, throughout the state of Pennsylvania, you had people who got their, like, for instance, my dad got his mail-in ballot on Saturday, and you can't, like, what the Postal Service said was, don't mail your ballot in after a week to the election. So as of last Tuesday, you cannot mail your ballot in and get it in on time to be counted by Friday of this week. So, because they're running so far behind. And so what they said was, after Tuesday, hold on to your ballot. If you have an absentee ballot, you didn't hand it in yet, you didn't mail it yet, hold on to it. Go in person to any polling place in Pennsylvania, hand it in, and vote in person. And you'll be able to do this at any polling place in Pennsylvania. Well, what ended up happening today was polling stations across the state have been saying, well, you're not allowed to turn that in here, and you're going to have to fill in a provisional ballot, which is actually reviewed later on to make sure you didn't double vote, right? So that was a huge voter suppression thing that was happening today in Pennsylvania. So it was just back and forth all day. You had poll watchers watching, making sure that one person voted only once, right? You had in Pennsylvania, there was a lawsuit trying to make sure that people can bring their AR-15s into the ballot box with them to make sure they're protected so they can vote. Well, that intimidates other voters, making them think that if you vote for the wrong person, you're going to get shot. So that's voter intimidation. A lot of things were happening today. In Texas, they had, let me just look it up here. Texas, mail-in ballots, lawsuit. There was, okay, 127 votes that were provided in mail-in ballots out of Harris County were contested by the Trump administration earlier this week, because here's the thing: Harris County includes Houston, Texas. Houston, Texas is majorly Democrat, and 127,000 ballots in Houston, Texas were basically going to make the state Democratic. It would have been a massive case, because it's like Texas has always been Republican, and there was this chance this election for it to be Democratic because of what was happening in Houston, Texas. And so what the Trump administration did was they contested 127,000 ballots in Harris County, and they said they're not valid because they're all mail-in ballots. Well, here's the thing. Federal judges have now said, no, those are valid because mail-in balloting has been a thing since the Civil War, and there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing fraudulent about it. There's only been 9 cases of voter fraud in the past 100 years of America or something like that. So no, they're valid. But here's the real kicker about them. A majority, a lot of those votes were from United States military members serving overseas. And historically, in every election, primary or general election, since the Civil War, United States military that are serving overseas can still legally vote in their election in their county and have their votes cast in their county by mail absentee ballots, because they're not going to be home to take the election in person. So they're going to fill out their mail-in ballots overseas, and they send them back home. They still have a say in their own democracy because they're American people. They're American citizens, right? And so for how many years now this has been going on, but American soldiers who live in Houston, Texas, sent in their absentee ballots, and Trump was calling these ballots invalid and a fraud. And so what you saw was people attacking Trump and saying, wait, so the guy who's massively in support of the military is saying that the military is cheating the election and none of their votes count? What the hell, So you had a lot of that going on. There's been a lot of court cases already, and there's promised to be court cases going forward. Pennsylvania, Trump has already sued Pennsylvania to ensure that no votes counted after midnight tonight will count, which is majorly Democratic. And we're going to show you in just a second why he's so upset about that and why it's so important for his campaign to cheat this election. So we're going to show you that all in 1 minute here. You asked me if I'm sad. It's been a very hectic day. It's been a very busy day. I've been up since 5 o'clock in the morning today, and it's now 9:30 p.m. So I've been up for a very, very long time, and it's been very stressful because there's a lot of Trump supporters. There's a lot of people who don't know the amount of lives that are at stake this election. A lot of people have been commenting to me and saying, well, Matt, are you upset about the 230,000 deaths from COVID. Yes, I am upset about that. Don't get me wrong for a second. That is a tragedy that was completely avoidable. I mean, we would have had a couple people die from COVID no matter what, because it was inevitable. It's a pandemic. That's what happens. But it would have been minimized to, experts believe, under 1,000 people would have died, which is still terrible, but it's a hell of a lot better than 230,000, which is what we're looking at right now of people that already died. And by the end of the year, we're looking at about 400,000 people died in America alone, all because Trump ignored the experts. He admitted on tape that he knew in January of this pandemic and how unsafe it was, and he chose not to do anything about it. And he chose to kill 230,000, which is terrible, you know? So yeah, I am upset about that. But more importantly, people are looking at that and they're like, wow, that's such horrible. But, you know, this is also a guy that's awarded James Dobson. This is also the guy that said neo-Nazis are perfectly fine people, which are Nazis. Like, the people who, like, were World War II, they killed 6 million people. Like, how are they very fine people? You know, this is the guy that people are looking up to. Over the years, I talk about it a little bit, but behind the scenes from all the productions I'm a part of, I'll talk to principals of school districts. And, you know, I work in a lot of school districts when there's not a pandemic going on. And it's difficult because you ask them, like, well, how is this all affecting you? Out of curiosity. And we'll start to talk about politics because we're adults and we can respect each other, you know? And I have yet to talk to a principal that says anything other than what our kids are learning right now is all things we need to counteract in the classroom. They're learning how to curse. They're learning that it's perfectly fine to cheat. They're learning that it's perfectly fine to you know, suck up to dictators and condemn your friends. They're learning that you don't need to learn science or history or health or any of this. You don't need to worry about this whole thing of coronavirus or LGBTQ lives. You don't have to worry about global warming. They're learning all of this. And you don't have to respect authority. They're learning all of this from our president. And that's what's really sad for me, is to, like, walk into a school and you talk to these principals and realize this is what they're dealing with on a daily basis because Trump is president, you know? And so it's difficult. And I do get sad over it. But I also get sad at, like, how many times Trump has come after my rights personally, and then people go, well, how dare you condemn Trump? How dare you use foul language against him? How dare you point out all these things Trump has done? Well, it's like, if you stop coming after me of my rights, then I'll stop coming after you. Trump has expressed many, many times he wants to get rid of marriage equality, and he's already packing the courts to do that. And the courts are already in the process of doing that. He wants to get rid of LGBTQ adoption, LGBTQ education in all schools. He's already tried to do that. He's already stripped us of our rights. Well, he passed an executive order on June 12th of this year that made it so that hospitals could deny you health coverage if you're LGBTQ. Meaning, basically, if you got beaten up for being LGBTQ so badly that you're about to die, you go to the hospital and they had the right to deny you basic health coverage and save your life just because you were LGBTQ. That was the way Donald Trump signed his executive order and allowed in our country. It took 2 months in federal courts for the Human Rights Campaign, ACLU, and all these fantastic organizations to sue Donald Trump and to sue this executive order. And finally the court said, no, fuck you, Trump. hospitals have to save your life, no matter what. It doesn't matter that you're LGBTQ, they have to save your life. It took 2 months for the federal courts to work that out, and yet Trump keeps on his tirade of thinking that we can die. And Trump has already expressed that he wants to roll back anti-sodomy laws so that gay people can be arrested for being gay. It's like all of this, and how is Trump a supporter? You know, how is Trump still president? How are not all of these 135 plus things? How are any of them not a federal fucking crime? You know, like, and impeachable. Trump colluded with Russia. He asked multiple countries to help him win this election, and yet we're still like, hey, it's perfectly fine. You know, it's despicable what's happened in our country. And so today was the epitome of all that. What reporters like I have been working on, and what people on all of our teams across the country have been working on, is ways to make sure that Donald Trump doesn't win tonight. Because if he wins, we get 4 more years of absolute discrimination. We were working all this time to make sure none of that happened. And today we find out. We find out this week. You know? So it's a very emotional week for us as activists, as researchers. And earlier today, I mean, I'll show you this, because this is sort of what I've been working on all day too, on my personal stuff. I tried distracting myself, but it's been hard to distract yourself from everything that's been going on. Let me go to this, my camera display here. And I've been telling people, like, Trump's single-handedly responsible for almost 500 deaths in 4 years, and said he doesn't want America to spend billions in the economy. So Trump has also said that gay people's money isn't good, and he doesn't want gay people to support the economy. He said that. And then it's like, wait, but aren't you the economy guy that wants to make your whole campaign about the economy, but yet you're willing to turn down billions of dollars from the economy just because we're gay, even though statistically speaking we outspend straight and cisgender people, you know? What was it? Also, today was garbage day in my town, so it's like fitting that today is garbage day, time to take out the trash we've been holding for 4 years, you know? So that's savage. But yeah, when the Senate refuses to impeach, we will impeach today. If I lose my right to marry today, please know I'm holding every Trump supporter accountable. Be a true ally and vote Biden. Because that's the thing. Marriage equality was on the ballot, and no one fucking believed me. Besides the LGBTQ people that follow this and know for a fact, you know? Like, everyone thinks this is a fucking joke, but I'm not joking. It's actually on the ballot today. And so I was stressed to no end about this all day long. And it's been a very hectic day, and I'm sorry if I'm like, hey, you know, I'm kind of like stressed, or I'm kind of like sad, but like we still don't know the outcome of the election, so it's very stressful, and I'm sorry. And yeah, please don't spam the chat, guys. That just makes it harder on everyone. So how is the election looking right now? That's what we're about to find out. What does it actually look like right now? I will tell you some sad news today happened already. I'll get to that in a second. So this is the official results so far. Biden has 89 electoral college votes, 72 for Trump. These are the states that are already called for both candidates. Oh yeah, and also if Trump doesn't win, he's promised a civil war. So that's a thing. Which is fun. And there's militias ready to go for a civil war, which is going to be fun. Like, never before have we seen it in our country where businesses had to board up doors all across the country in preparation for an election, because they were so afraid that Trump supporters would start a riot in this country. What also happened in Washington, D.C., which is the capital of the United States, right? I was there on Friday. We're going to be talking about Washington, D.C. a lot, and we're going to be talking about the Pride event that happened a couple years ago that I went to there, which was my first ever Pride event. But yeah, really, like in Washington, they built a literal, like, so what happened, what you guys should probably know, is around the White House they have fences that protect the White House from terrorists, right? And then they added another fence with barbed wire all around the White House in light of the Black Lives Matter protest, which were peaceful protesters, and they put up barbed wire fencing outside the White House because they didn't want peaceful protesters anywhere near the White House. It's like, okay, even though that's our First Amendment right to peaceful protest, whatever, you know? So Trump built this wall around himself that said, I don't want to deal with my naysayers, and I don't want to be held accountable to my people. And even though the White House is called the People's House, we own that house. He doesn't. He's just living in it for some godforsaken reason. But that's what the White House is. It's called the People's House for a reason, because we own it. We should be allowed to see it at all times. We should be allowed to visit it at all times because it's ours, not his. It's never going to be his. It never was his. It's ours. And so he built up this fence to keep out peaceful protesters. And now what's happened is they're actually so afraid that if Trump wins this election, there are going to be more peaceful protesters and riots. And so they put up a second fence around it. So now there are a total of 3 fences all around the White House, 2 of them barbed wire from what our reports are saying. And so it's like you're building all these defenses to make sure that you aren't accountable to your people, which is despicable. If you need 3 fences around the people's house, you're probably not that good of a president, are you? You know? But that's the America we live in. So, this is what's called right now in America, but again, all of these are only small percentages of what's being the expected vote count in. There's still many more votes to come in, and I'll show you in a second why Pennsylvania is so important. But where is this at? This sort of gives you voting trends of what it was like in 2016 or 2012 and what it's like now. But what's happened in the state results is even more interesting. Let's go to Senate really quick. Senate is pretty darn interesting for what it is, just because of what's happened in Kentucky tonight. So there were a lot of federal senator positions up for re-election or election this year. For November election, there were 35 seats for Democratic that were never going to go away. They're up for re-election. Other years, 30 up for re-election. Other years for Republicans. GOP is Grand Old Party. Republicans, by the way. DEM is Democratic. So you know. So all these gray states aren't up for re-election, but the dark gray ones are. And we had, Texas went red. Obviously, that was always going to happen. You had Colorado going blue. That was always going to happen. New Hampshire, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Delaware. They're pretty much always Democratic, so that was always going to happen. New Jersey is kind of a little bit of surprise because that's sometimes Republican, but Cory Booker won that in a landslide this year, which is great because Cory Booker is a huge LGBTQ rights advocate. He massively supports and actually co-sponsored the Equality Act in the Senate. So he's a massive supporter. That's fantastic news that he won. But surprisingly, what happened was in Kentucky, Mitch McConnell, who's the guy who is the Senate Majority Leader right now, depends on. By the way, Majority Leader means of which party has more seats in the Senate, right? There's 51 seats in total, and there's 100 seats in total. You need at least 51 to control the Senate, which means you're the majority party. And right now, it's totally up for grabs. The Democrats could take this U.S. Senate, even if we don't win the presidency and the what's it called? The executive branch. We could still win the Senate and thereby win the Congress. We could still win that, the legislative branch, right? So there's 23 races that are still uncalled, and so there's still that margin where either party could win the majority there. Now, if the Democrats do win the Senate, that means Mitch McConnell is no longer the majority leader, even if he won tonight in his state race. So what happened in Kentucky is he got 58% of the vote with 1,087,741 votes, and his challenger, who was A. McGrath, wonderful woman. She had a lot more qualities about her. She only got 38.1% of the vote, with 80% of the votes actually being counted right now. They're just projecting Mitch McConnell is going to win. What's really important to know about this is that the actual election results, they have to wait for 100% of the votes to be counted, and even then, each and every state has to go through and verify each and every vote. So what you're talking about is millions upon millions of votes that have to be verified afterwards to make sure they're accurate, and then and only then is the actual election called to that certain candidate. So it's that in every race, it always takes weeks to officially call any of these races, including president. It's just in recent years, because of technology, television stations have been able to call a presidency on the election night, but in truth, the official results don't come in until weeks later, and sometimes the Electoral College numbers do change a little bit. It's just major TV stations don't want to call something until it's abundantly clear this candidate is going to win. So sometimes they'll call these races, and sometimes the percentages will change, but not enough to actually change the race. So Mitch McConnell is projected to win his seat back, but it's not certain yet whether or not he's going to be majority leader. He might be minority leader, and Democrats might have to choose a majority leader after that point. So it's all about this balance of power. Basically, this little graph down here is going to... Oh, fuck. I'm not actually showing my display. So this little display down here is going to show you 100 seats and who is going to control the Senate going forward. We'll have a majority of these filled in red or blue. So that's right there. You need 51 for control. The Senate, the House over here. The House, again, it's completely up to this election. The Democrats had 69. The GOP had 93 going into today. So there's a lot of seats open and available. The balance of power, again, down here, it's just too early to tell on a lot of this. So you could end up with an executive branch that is Republican controlled, and then have a House and a Senate that is both Democratic controlled, and then the president basically can't do much at all, which is what happened to Obama years ago, where he had Democratic control in the Oval Office, which is the executive branch, and then the Republicans controlled the House and the Senate. So that means they vetoed everything he did, and they didn't let him do anything, right? For the presidential race, where right now we have Trump at 72 electoral college votes and Biden at 89. You need a total of 270 to win the presidency. So right now, 37% of the expected votes that were cast in absentee ballots, in the voting in person today, 30% of those votes have been actually tabulated and are known at this time. There's still 101 million votes still not counted that will be counted tonight and going through the rest of the week. So right now, no one knows who's going to win, and probably not for a while. Kanye only was able to run in, I think, 1 or 2 states, because in order to even get on the ballot, you need to have enough signatures to get on that ballot, and so it's massively difficult to do that. So, I mean, a lot of experts politically have projected tonight, and all of these are projections of what I'm about to say here, by the way. Trump is not winning. You need 270 to actually win. Right now, neither of them have over 100. So anything can happen still, you know. And out here in California, Nevada, those polls close at 11 p.m. tonight, and it's only about 9:52 p.m. Eastern time right now. So another hour, and these polls are going to close. But as soon as they close, you're going to start seeing a little bit more action here of the amount of votes that are actually being counted, because those polls will be officially closed. Now, what a lot of experts have sort of estimated tonight to happen is that the House will more than likely be Republican controlled going forward for the next couple of years, because just of what's happened with coronavirus. So many people are upset with the House and the Senate that they really didn't pass that many financial stimulus packages to help America through this. They really, both parties did an absolutely horrendous job on passing stimulus packages. They were very political back and forth. You had Democrats and Republicans wanting their own thing, not willing to compromise anywhere in the middle. And so what you'll probably end up seeing is the Senate and the House are going to actually switch majorities this time. So probably the House will become Grand Old Party, GOP, which is Republican controlled. Senate will become Democratic controlled. That's what a lot of experts believe to happen. It's still just up in the air completely of what's going to happen in the presidency. Now, the good news about that is, if all of that is true, if the experts are right about this, which, again, no one can tell, this is unprecedented. We've never had this many mail-in votes before. We've never had this many people vote before. Literally, more people registered to vote this year in this November election than any other year in history, for at least decades before. So that's great to see. People are getting involved in their democracy. People are getting involved in their voting. Like, one of the big things today was a Republican friend of mine shared photos of their polling place with lines that were, 2-3 hours long, and saying like, wow, this many people showed up and are here to vote. And it's like, and it's great to see that many people showing up, regardless of party affiliation, regardless of who you're going to vote for. It's genuinely beautiful to see that many people get involved, because what happens a lot of times in America is we have these elections, and then right afterwards, people complain, oh, how come that happened? And it's like, okay, but did you vote? And they're like, no, I didn't vote. But how come this happened? I listened to the polls, the pre-polls, but before the election happened, and I saw my candidate was ahead. And I thought, well, my candidate's so far ahead that my vote doesn't really matter, because, you know, they're so far ahead in the polls, it really doesn't matter if I actually go or not. Well, what ends up happening is, you know, you don't vote. A lot of people don't vote because they all think this way, and suddenly the polls mean nothing, because what you said in that phone call survey isn't what you actually did in person and voted. So we see what happened in 2016 with Donald Trump. He won solely because the polls all said Hillary Clinton's going to win in a landslide. Democratic voters across the country thought, hey, she's so far ahead, I don't need to vote. I don't need to vote in person. And what ended up happening is so many people thought their vote didn't really matter anyway, because the polls were so far ahead, that the Republicans ended up winning. And it was 2016 was decided by 80,000 votes. 80,000 votes in like 3 key states, one of which was Pennsylvania. And so we're keeping an eye on those 3 states going forward tonight. But it's like, out of hundreds of millions of votes, 80,000 is how it was decided. That's crazy, you know. What? Yeah. If you're a Trump supporter, I don't know why you're here. Did you not see the thumbnail for this video? Yeah. Yeah, you're all saying Trump 2020, but you forgot the dump Trumps. Yeah. So Biden is currently winning right now, but it's way too early to tell exactly if he will. It's way too close to call, and so many votes are left. There are 377 electoral votes remain in a race that only takes 270 to win. So some wants Trump, some wants Biden, but deep down we all want Kanye West. No one wants Kanye West in the White House. He would be horrible. Arguably worse than Trump. Oh, Aiden Gaming and More, thank you so much for the donation of $1. Thank you so much. I absolutely love that. Thank you for supporting the show. And yes, Super Chat donations are available tonight during the whole broadcast. You can give us a Super Chat to help us provide LGBTQ education in the future. We provide weekly episodes of LGBTQ education because our school districts don't. And Donald Trump has taken LGBTQ education out of a lot of schools in America. So we're here to provide that education in light of that. And a lot of teachers, a lot of teachers teach our lessons and allow us in their classroom and our show in the classroom, even though Trump doesn't like it very much. So it's really cool. But yeah, so let me quickly explain why it's so important for, I mean, first off, if you're in if you're in Nevada, if you're in Utah, let's see, Montana, if you're in any of those states, then you need to go to your polling place right now and make sure you're voting to dump Donald Trump, because holy crap, we need that. And yes, Black Lives Matter. Of course they do. So Trump might pull through, but that would spell disaster for our country. There's no doubt about it. And I mean, hundreds of thousands of people have already died. We don't need any more, you know. Um, so, yeah, we don't need a civil war. Even though I'm pro-Trump, I'm watching for results. Okay. I mean, yeah, just we're going to be bashing on Trump a lot because, I mean, he deserves every bit of it. Because he wants to kill LGBTQ people. So, I mean, and he wants to lock us up forever. So, you know, that's fun. So we brag on him a lot on this show. So, just so you're prepared for that, that's going to happen. And just so you know, we call him the devil, a disease. We call him Satan. We call him a lot of things because he is all those things. And it's as long as you're not homophobic or transphobic in the chat, we'll allow you to stay. Yeah, Trump's rallies were the cause of 700 plus deaths. So that's the stupidest part. He got rid of 700 of his own voters this election season because he told them it was safe to be out there. So it's like, you're killing your own voters. That's kind of the stupidest thing I've ever seen a candidate ever do, and I've been following politics a very long time. Your own So this is like what's forecasted right now to happen. We're going to go through in a second. Let's create our own here. So I can show you exactly what I'm talking about. There are a lot of ways that Biden can win here, okay? So there are a couple things we know already going into this election. First off, let's take the ones that are already called here: Colorado, New York, Vermont. Hold on. Let me take a second to do this because, you know, I'm also streaming live. So we have blue, Colorado, New York, Vermont. These are the ones that are already called. Massachusetts, Connecticut. Massachusetts, Connecticut. We have New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, D.C. New Jersey, Delaware. Official yet, but it's because they're always red states. Indiana, yeah, that's even exist. Right. Then we have South Carolina goes blue. It's never a long fucking time, you know.